the majority of the students in government and aided schools are in what is called Malayalam first and English second medium. Okay, this may be all too difficult to remember, but the main thing to remember is that almost all students are studying in schools where at least one section is English medium. That is the situation in the most advanced state in India. So we may think that maybe that's the future for other states too. Okay. Yeah. So curriculum is another differentiator. That is, private unaided schools are mainly English, but they almost all CBSE curriculum, but not entirely. Some follow the state curriculum also, but teaching in English. Okay. State, government and aided schools are all state syllabus. Now, we know that the issue is that, of course, when it comes to higher education and higher secondary education, CBSE curriculum is valued for its All India appeal for professional education and so on. And the state government curriculum is not as highly valued. But there is also this differentiation between aided, unaided, and government schools. And the teacher education training requirements are higher for the CBSE schools, especially at the primary level. We'll come back to that. Now, I'll make two more important points. Unaided schools are actually more popular at the pre-primary and primary level. Remember, I said a lot of them have higher secondary and secondary, but when you see enrollment, okay, if you now the percentages are total across the rows, you see that at the pre-primary level, 60%, this is based on National Sample Survey, are enrolled in private unaided schools. So people want to go to unaided schools for pre-primary because it's English medium. And they also go to a primary in unaided schools, about 34%. But when it comes to secondary and higher secondary, you see the enrollment shift. And 48% are now in government schools and 50% at the higher secondary level. And even in the private aided, it's quite high. In other words, you apparently see a shift from the unaided at the primary level to the government schools, okay? And this is National Sample Survey, so I want to confirm it is from both independent sources of data. And now what we see in this is the enrollment by class using the UDICE data. And it is very clear that students seem to be transferring from unaided schools after grade 4, that is the end of lower primary, and then grade 7, which is the end of upper primary. So the bottom line is the central government schools enrollment. That's flat. It's very small. The state government one is the orange line, and you see it starts increasing after grade 7. The gray line is the aided schools, which is the majority enrollment in Kerala. And again, that starts increasing after grade 4 and increases again. And the unaided one is the blue line, which falls after grade 4 and after grade 7. So there seems to be a big transition between these systems. I don't think the students from unaided English medium schools are going to Malayalam medium sections. They're probably going to the English medium sections of the government schools in high school and higher secondary. So who attends the government and aided Malayalam medium lower primary schools? I'm not showing the data, but it's clearly children from the poorest strata, rural and tribal children if there's no English medium school nearby, and increasingly children from other states who are here. The teachers and teaching is very different. Teachers have certificate level training. They're trained in Malayalam. They teach Malayalam and English medium sections together, often, as you will find. And they face an increasingly multilingual classrooms. Okay, just a few graphs to show how concentrated the poverty is in the government schools. So the left side is English-only schools, that is mainly unaided. This shows the distribution of percentage of students below the poverty line. You see on the blue in this first graph, the majority of unaided schools have almost no poverty, below the poverty level students. And all the other schools, the government, Malayalam medium, Malayalam and English and aided ones and all have a distribution. That is, there are more poverty, higher poverty level students there. So this is why our report of VMFT is called Separate and Unequal. And I ask you to look at that because essentially, like you have children segregated in a way, though there's some transition. The ones on the left, the infrastructure is great, even though the ladder is broken here. School infrastructure is pretty good, but it's broken because the children can't climb up. And those are those who start in Malayalam medium in lower primary, they essentially get stuck there. They're not able to transition. And as the next presentation will show about learning, they're also doing the worst on learning. At the other end, you probably have the unaided CBSE schools, good schools, and children march ahead, reach the top, they're okay. In between, you have a whole section, government schools with English medium, unaided schools, and children transition between them. It's not really clear what language they're learning or how they are learning, and there's very little research about it. So we have to be concerned about the first group. I don't know how much, maybe it's 20%, and then the middle groups also, because otherwise we will have a very segregated system compared to what we had. Just a few more minutes, just to say, there has been a policy drift or inertia. So what brought Kerala to the forefront, I believe, was social mobilization and very strong policy focus from the 50s, continued through every government, Congress or leftist, everybody subscribed to that. There's a common social consensus. Today, from the 90s onwards, the only thing common is the policy drift is common to both groups. But you had a very lackadaisical policy. They encouraged unaided schools, then there's ambivalence towards the teaching of English in government and aided schools. For instance, Kerala was one of the last states to introduce English in grade 1. This led to an exodus to unaided schools because people wanted to learn, their kids to learn English. Piecemeal introduction of changes. Where is an English medium section allowed? When is it not allowed? It's a policy to retain Malayalam medium section in every school, even though there's hardly any student there. You will see that. And a confusion about assessment. Do children write the exam in English or Malayalam? Apparently you can choose, and you can even choose by question. So what does our assessment mean, right? There's a fraying of social consensus. Education is no longer really a means of social emancipation. It is really primarily for jobs and for individual job mobility and success. So that's a change we have to see. It's for individual achievement. And Malayalam is no longer the predominant unifying cultural connection. So there is a question of what we are as a people as we go forward. And I think teacher education has been a major failure. Teacher education programs, they've not changed despite this changing language landscape. Ideally, teachers should be trained in both languages, but we have TTI, which train in Malayalam, B.Ed programs, which train in English, allegedly, because it's higher education, but effectively in Malayalam, then they go and teach either in Malayalam medium or in English medium, and it's not clear actually what language competencies they have. And what are teachers' aspirations and motivations? Because now there's a differentiated system. Where would they like to teach? I mean, probably in the government system for the salaries, but probably in the unaided system for for just having a better group of students and so on. Now, this affects teacher quality also. And at what level do they want to teach? And of course, our curriculum materials and assessment do not take into account the changes on the ground. I tried to read through the Kerala curriculum framework. I don't even see any reference to the realities on the ground as to the fact that there are, 60% of children studying in English medium and so on. These facts are not even referred to. And now we're facing further social change, 5 million workers from other states, children exposed to global culture. What then is the role of Malayalam in the society and in culture? And what is the way out of impasse? I mean, this is my last slide. I think we have to move. What you have is an ineffective bilingual policy, and I think it will come out. It's not a policy, it's a practice. And we should really be moving to an effective bilingual education policy, just like an effective policy of the mid-50s. Recognize all students need high quality English language teaching. Recognize that parents associate that with English medium instruction. Okay, so then we have to define what is the role of Malayalam and how we bring in multilingual approaches, since we have a large number of students from different backgrounds. And again, I think we have to take in a broader group of stakeholders: media, policymakers, teacher community, managements, parents, and students. So thank you for giving me the time.